call the December 18, 2023 meeting of the Woodbridge Board of Ed to order at 7:06 p.m. with a reminder to all those who are watching and participating to kindly mute your microphones to avoid any background noise. This meeting is being held as a hybrid meeting consistent with Connecticut Public Act 22-3. The public may attend in person or electronically via WebEx. The meeting is being recorded and the recording will be available on the district website. Call roll. Vice Chair Maria Madonna. Present. Secretary Sarah Beth Delfree. Sarah Beth, do I see you on remotely?
She's logged in, Lynn.
I know. Okay, tells me she has to stay here for us to count her as here. Jay Dyer.
Here.
Brooke Hopkins. Stay here.
Brooke was just there.
Her too. Jeff Hughes. Stephen Lawrence, thank you.
Here.
Mike Strambler.
Here.
Aaron Williamson. Here. And Lynn Piazza, the chair. I'm going to try one more time for Sarah Beth and Brooke.
See, Sarah, that's trying to unmute. This is what we saw. I saw her unmute button.
Yes, Sarah Beth and Brooke, we cannot hear you. But we see that you're logged in.
Yeah, now we're just keep it.
Okay. Brooke, just wave or something. Yeah, Brooke here. You turn on your camera and wave or something, folks, we can't hear you. All right, we'll keep trying, Sarah Beth. Thanks. Steven. Oh, hi, Sarah Beth. So we have Sarah Beth Delfree and Brooke Hopkins remote. The chair, Lynn Piazza. Staff in attendance this evening, Ms. Von Detenza, superintendent, Ms. Donna Coonan, Director of Operations, Ms. Carrie Borcherding, Director of Special Services, Ms. Annalise Sherman, Principal. Remotely, I believe I saw Mr. Jimmy Sapia, Assistant Principal, and Ms. Cheryl Toffel, Assistant Principal, remotely, and Clerk to the Board, Ms. Marcia DeGennaro, remotely. So we are very pleased once again this evening to highlight the wonderful students that attend Beecher Road School. And so I'm delighted tonight to welcome two sixth graders and student council members, John Malillo and Victor Schwell. I blew it, huh? Schwell. Is that better?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And they will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll ask everyone to please stand.
I pledge you to the flag.
Liberty and justice for all. Wonderful. John and Victor, I want to thank you for taking on a leadership role and for your service to the school. Certainly are serving as a positive role model, not only to your class, but also to the greater community. And I thank you for coming this evening to do that once again. Thanks, Victor. Thanks, John. Grab some chips on the way out if you want. Yay. Correspondence. I don't believe there was any correspondence correspondence that was posted in board book and or received. There is?
One piece, yeah.
One piece? Okay. So the letter has been posted in board book and it made it into the pack. Okay, thank you. Public comment. I believe there is public comment this evening. Which? Statement. The board welcomes public participation and is appreciative of the feedback we receive from the community, whether it's through letters or public comments at meetings. If you are making a public comment at tonight's meeting, please be aware that the board will not respond to any comments made during the public comment period except to clarify issues. We will take into consideration your comments and when appropriate, the administration will follow up with you at a later point in time. We ask that the speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes. There will be a timer this evening. Dr. Madonna will serve as the timekeeper this evening. So I will ask that when your allotted minutes is indicated, that the speakers respectfully ensure their statement. First on the list, Don Hall.
All second grade, sixth grade parent. So to be brief, and I apologize because I'm every meeting a little bit behind, I think. So I'm now responding to the 20th meeting. Just a couple quick things about math again. So one thing about the current sixth graders that were offered some kind of enrichment, it seems like that's been a bit spotty. Some of the parents kids who've received like the Alex have not had any communication with the school. It has not met anybody. This year. So I know that the school is trying to do these things, but just to push a little bit more. These are the kids who didn't get the opportunity to actually have a class, enrichment class, and so it's nice to have a little bit of time with the specialist or somebody just check in with how they're doing in Alex. That was the one thing. The other thing, so there was a comment in the last meeting about how Beecher had intended to do pre-algebra this year, but not qualified. And I'm just wondering how we're doing things differently this year, because this was the first year of having the new criteria. And very few people qualified, but it seems like we're going to set ourselves up for this the next year unless things happen. I just heard that there is some pulling a few kids out in fifth grade who are maybe a little bit advanced and working with them. I hadn't heard about, so that's something. And here, I guess I'm partly asking you to start a little bit more communication with parents, and it seems like that's a very small number of kids, but potentially those are kids who are with that extra practice are a little bit more likely to qualify here. But I think the main point was that if we're really on the cusp of sometimes offering it, sometimes not offering it, or having to decide whether we let a few people in or not, or maybe it's based on the budget, that's not a recipe for having a sustained program. In particular, by running the class every year, the teachers are learning about how to teach this class effectively and how to encourage the kids. And then the kids know about it and say, oh, coming up in a couple of years, if you're really interested in math, you're going to be able to take this other class. But if it sometimes runs and sometimes doesn't, it's really not going to be effective. And so I would really encourage when it's sort of on the borderline to think more about that. Can we offer the class by letting a few more kids in, maybe they don't meet all of the standards, but build it up over several years to the point where it becomes a regular occurrence every year. So that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you. Cindy Kruger, next on the list.
I wanted to first thank you, the board, because I've really seen your commitment this year and very long meetings and a lot going on. I wanted to address the curriculum issue. So both the math curriculum and the reading curriculum. I'm the PTO president, but I'm also the mother of an advanced math kid and also the reading kid at risk. And so I'm sort of uniquely seeing everything from the point of view of a parent. And I really love this school and I trust this school and I try to really follow you but I really would like to ask for more communication that was going on here, because I have all those roles and I don't know anything. People think I know special things, but I don't know. I don't know the details of how my advanced kids pulled out or prepared for next year, or what is, the proposal is going to be. I don't know how the rate and curriculum is going to evolve and change and kind of help the other child. And certainly as the PTO president, I don't know how to answer questions about curriculum. And I would also just suggest that parents shouldn't have to come to these board meetings or curriculum meetings when they're working in order to be able to, the school. So I know so much is in flux, but my just general request is for some more communication to parents on a regular basis. And that's it.
Thank you. If there are any participants who are attending remotely that wish to speak, please raise your hand in the participants. I don't see any. So we will move on. Thank you. PTO update. A written report from PTO can be found online in Board Book. So I encourage the public to access the report. Our reports this year have wonderful information in it about what's going on, what's been accomplished, and what's being planned. So I invite everyone to take a look at that. It is
Thank you. I've been toning my car. So doing my best. So I'll just highlight a couple of things tonight. On our program on a page, we are very happy to say that we have completed all of the items that we plan to do this fall. Just distributing the original works, and the final retake pictures this week. Having our general membership meeting, our bylaws do have us have 5 year. We encourage the public and everyone else to come. One thing that I just wanted to add is we have confirmed we will be doing international night, and we're actually not going to call it International Food Night. It's just going to be International Night to celebrate sort of some of the different kinds of things. So food, dancing, art, things from all of our heritage. And then the other thing that I would like to kind of highlight is that we believe we're going to be able to bring back the fun run, hopefully, with a new vendor where we get to keep almost all the money instead of them keeping all the money. So hopefully that will make everyone happy. The vendor in the past did keep about half or more of the money. The vendor we have found now takes a $500 fee and then only takes the credit card. They give 3%. 94%, and I think that is a lot of enthusiasm to go with that. Lisa, thanks for working with us in the Lost and Found. And we've had some amazing parents who are passionate about that, and we will now change how the school feels with Lost and Found, and the items will be going to the green team when we're done, so that they can recycle them. And that's, we're getting people used to wearing secondhand clothes. It's not just so there's no stigma with that anymore. Like I can go to school and buy clothes other people used to wear. As a responsible part of the world, and then if there are items that will come out, I wanted to highlight that our budget we are on track, so that is good. Like at the beginning of the year, I know it's very nervous, but now we're doing well. So thank you for everyone for your donations and the money spent. And then at the end of this report, there is I think our Vice President Monica, who made finally a list of all of our volunteers, and that was really,
eye-opening. Eye-opening.
Because sometimes you feel like you're doing it alone, but we actually have over 200 volunteers so far in the year, and we still have a lot of activities left. So I really thank everybody in the community, everybody who's done it, and hope 200 more will join us.
That's wonderful. I'm really excited about International Night.
I think it's going to be fun.
So thank you. And Cindy, as always, amazing PTO. We appreciate everything. And I found the list of names really just so heartwarming to see so many people who want to be a part of this school community. So kudos to all those people. Thanks. Moving on to consent agenda. The minutes from the November 20 regular meeting are included in this evening's consent agenda, along with the budget narrative, the budget summary, and the detailed financial report. Also included are two policies for 30-day review, policy 9132.4, Finance Committee, and policy 3515, use of school facilities. Does anyone on the board wish to extract anything for discussion from the consent agenda? Seeing nothing, I'll ask for a motion on the consent agenda. Maria,
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
and do I have a second? Stephen? Motion made by Maria Madonic, seconded by Lauren. All those in favor, please raise your hand. I see your hand raised, Brooke. Open for- Sarah Beth, can you say you approve the, consent agenda? Marcia, it's unanimous, except I cannot hear, Sarah Beth, so. Or see her.
Yeah, the audio,
What was that?
Something about the audio was.
The audio is cutting in and out. Okay. So the motion passes. And we're moving on to, report. So, first, item on the agenda is board member recognition. So, who's gonna go first?
Okay, we do want to recognize Dr. Maria Madonic for her service on the Board of Education. She's passed, I believe, 18 months, and if you aren't aware, Maria has been very involved in the school for a long time prior to that, as a parent, mentor, and also deeply involved in the PTO. And when I think about Maria, there's a special quote, and I just want to share it with you. And it is the Old Greek proverb, and it talks about society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they shall never sit. And so Maria, in her capacity over the years for Future Grade School, has planted many seeds of trees. I would imagine if she looks back now, she can probably identify many programs, curriculum, policy, and funding that she has grown through her ideas and time and effort. She's working hard to help build the future of our physical building. And, you know, as our enrollment increases, I think that Maria's support, I'm confident that Maria, stepping on the board of selectmen, will continue to plant trees in whose shade she may never sit on behalf of the future of our children.
Okay, so now my turn. So I have a little statement that I will read as well. Someone once said, volunteering is the ultimate exercise in democracy. You vote in elections once a year, but when you volunteer, you vote every day about the kind of community you want to live in. That quote, for me, speaks to the action of Maria Madonic's life. In Woodbridge, as Vonda mentioned, Maria began being recognized as an involved parent and an active participant on the executive board of the PTO as her children moved through the grades at Beecher Road School. Then in 2021, she was elected to the Woodbridge Board of Education. Her reputation for commitment, organization, and problem solving led to her election as the board's vice chair. Since joining the board, Maria has worked tirelessly, taking on numerous leadership roles. In addition to serving as the vice chair and as a member of the board leadership team, she also served on the board's finance committee. But in a leadership way, Maria has chaired the policy committee, so you can see she's very busy. One of the things that I've taken note of is that as schools reopened during the pandemic, policy work was extensive for all schools, not just Beecher Road School. And Maria navigated this difficult path with efficiency and grace. She recently started the task of reviewing and auditing all of our board policies to assure that our district addresses all pertinent policy issues and is compliant with all current state statutes and regulations. Then there's the next path that she split on. As our enrollment in Beecher continued to grow and space became tight, the board knew that we had to begin the process of studying options. As board chair, I established the Enrollment-Instructional Youth and State Planning Ad Hoc Committee and thought of the name that no one could remember. And there is no question Maria had the talent to chair that committee. Along with other Board of Education members, administrators, teachers, community members, Maria led the group as they reviewed pertinent data and information. She researched how other districts had addressed space and facility issues. She invited speakers to the committee meetings. And then following the committee's work, Maria presented the group findings to both the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen in a thorough and informative PowerPoint presentation. It amazed everyone. And this led our board to authorize a feasibility study that will address future district needs. Tonight we'll vote on a company to help us to do that, a group of consultants to help us do that work. Maria has always volunteered for any task that has presented itself. When the board wants to sponsor something for the PTO Halloween hoop, Maria's on. When the board wants to acknowledge the work of our administration, Maria's on. She's an organizer beyond belief. She is thorough in her work, she is reflective in her decision-making, and she is committed to making Beecher Road School community the best it can be. And now Maria will step off the Board of Education as she assumes a new volunteer role in our community as a member of the Board of Selectmen. As such, just like Vonda, I am confident that Maria will continue to work diligently to make Woodbridge the best community it can be for all of us. The Board of Education's law is, for sure, the town of Woodbridge is in. And so on behalf of the Woodbridge Board of Education and the Woodbridge School District, I wish to commend Maria Madonic for her devotion, thank her for her volunteerism on the Board of Education and everything else that she's done for this school, and wish her the best in her new volunteer position on the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen. I remind everyone who's watching that none of us get paid for the work that we do. However, I would like to thank you for a little bit. I would like to commend you. So I have to tell you that one thing for me being on the Board of Education are the wonderful relationships that I've developed with so many people. Maria is one of those very special people. So just because she's not on the Board of Education doesn't mean we're not going to speak to her. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of my colleagues on the Board of Education, because none of this work was done by one person, it was all of us collectively. So thank you all for your time, for working together, and really helping us as we can move forward in this project. I appreciate working with all of you. And
be calling on you too. Next on the agenda is the superintendent report.
Thank you. Okay. Before we start, I do want to say that, Jane Roddy was very clear that there are no brownies for the Board of Education this evening. There is a very special blueberry treat over there from Teresa McCool. So we can enjoy that as we progress this evening. People in the audience that are here that may enjoy that. So I just did want to make sure to shout out because it looks delicious.
Thank you, Teresa, who I see online.
Yes. So I'll be brief because we have a lot of topics to talk about tonight. So I'll kind of dip into several of them. Our enrollment report is attached. It currently sits at 895 students. The budget at last week's special meeting, we presented the superintendent's budget proposal. So this will be discussed by the board this evening in greater detail. And we will also touch on maybe a little switch with some budget meeting dates. So we'll do that. We had established some in early January. I think we're going to tweak that based on the work that's for the town. Rest of my information is attached to
Other meeting. Okay, and other issues.
yeah, other agenda. It's attached to other.
Okay, so I'm assuming there's no questions about enrollment or, so we'll move on to the adoption of the 24-25 plan. Is that?
Yeah.
Great.
So the calendar was put forth in the previous month's meeting. I would like to say that at that time, I had shared with you that Amity was discussing the possibility of extending February to a full week and adding the 3 days on to the end of the calendar year. They have since voted at the Amity Board of Education level to adopt that full week for February vacation and extend the date in June. Since then, additionally, just the other day, Bethany also voted to support that calendar. And just as a reminder, if you were wondering why did Amity want to do this, just as a quick refresher, this allows the Amity seniors who are involved in internships a longer period of time. Most seniors at Amity are involved with a exam, which take place throughout the month of May. And so they really can't dig into an internship until those are over. So this early release in June that we've had, compiled with very few snow days, has not offered the Amity seniors the opportunity they would like for an extended number of days as an internship. So this was an effort to try to add a few days longer and see what happened. So I think as a district, we work with the Bowl region. It would be my recommendation that we adopt a calendar that honors that to be fair to the families so that all of their children have the same vacation. And I also would like to ask an additional point for the board's consideration is that all of the bowl calendars, except for ours, have an early release date prior to the December break. I did some research and there are years where we haven't and there are years where we have not. Our teacher contract language is very specific that if the day prior to December break is the 23rd, it must be a half day. It is silent on any other half day or early release day, really not half day. So it really is the board's discretion, and again, it would be my recommendation, probably not for this year, because it's only just a few days away, but that's up to your discussion. But it would be my recommendation that for the next calendar and moving forward, that the day prior to the December break would be an early release. So those are my comments on the calendar. I'm happy to answer any questions. This calendar was also shared the contact with the Education Association president and Tennessee Action.
Okay, thank you. Let's start with a motion and then we can have a discussion. I have a motion on the adoption of the calendar. Jay? Thank you, Jay. And do I have, a second to that motion? Maria? Okay. Sorry, Martha, I had my microphone covered. Thank you, Anthony. Somebody's gotta keep me in line. Okay, is there any discussion on the motion?
I only have one question. So I noticed that the snow makeup days were in June. In April. Did they talk about using February as the makeup period? No.
Well, they have, oh.
You see what I'm saying?
First,
A lot of people. That was the rationale to. Because I noticed that we've always had the April. This we finish early. So I'm thinking of the back end. Where does it go in? And I thought it made sense to go back to February and put it in there. Again.
Right. Plus, there's 11 days in June that are snow makeup days. Jay, if
Tell my
there
kids
is
that
11
I should,
days, I'm not gonna be on the Board of Ed anymore.
kids after that.
Right, so I'm guessing that we're not gonna then go to April. Although there have been years where we have gone late, and it hasn't been because of snow necessarily, but when we had the hurricanes and bad storms that have affected, the entire community, yeah, that has affected us as well.
The other school districts all voted. They're doing.
The only district left to vote orange, then they vote Wednesday night, but we do try to get together in the district because our bus costs are closely tied. We only have a few days where we can go differently without incurring a bunch of cherry costs, not that we can't, but.
Anything else?
I also imagine if you have children in both districts and the high school is off. There might be a chance they might extend out that. Which could have had.
Yeah, I guess that would be good. Anything? Yeah.
The X is on the side.
So the X indicates that the building is closed as well. It's not just a student off day, but the building is closed.
Okay.
So you'll note that on the recess days, the custodians and sometimes the office staff or, that it's not, and teacher workshop days. This is how it's always been.
What was something like, what were we confused about the other day?
I think it was changed. In the workshop days box, there was a, limited parentheses, there was a, limited day. Wasn't clear whether that was a half day for students and a half day of professional development for teachers. It's just so, but that was changed. That's what we were talking
Clear it
about.
up.
No school for the kids, only for the teacher.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else there? Okay. All right, Brooke, anything? Okay.
I do want to just point out that has been removed, but the teachers who traditionally not work the entire full day that day. So I don't want anybody to think, we'll do a full day. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion to adopt, the proposed 24-25 student calendar, please signify by raising your hand. Sarah Beth, I see your hand, thank you. Well done.
Lynn, I don't have the maker of the motion nor the person who made the second.
Jay Dyer made the motion and Maria seconded it.
Thank you.
Sorry, Marcia. Okay. All right.
I would just add on that. we can do it. So next year, y'all are gonna have a whole week in February. Start planning.
Yeah.
Or last. We will kind of.
Yeah, great. 3B2, approve building needs and space planning proposal.
Yes. So next on our list, this is another conversation that we've been having for quite some time now. And Donna and I are hoping on behalf of the school district that we can move forward with selecting a group to represent and support the development and issuance of an RFP/P for the enrollment and space issues at Beecham Road School. So in board book tonight and previously provided to you are two different companies' proposals. Construction Solutions Group, will be moving PSG and Collier. Donna and I have met with both groups and then followed up and talked with them multiple times. We do have a preference for Construction Solutions Group for many reasons, including their quick and helpful responses each time we reached out. That is important. And this is in no way discredit to the other company at all, but Construction Solutions Group was very quick and responsive. They offered very diverse and detailed projects and options for us to consider. They offered details and examples of projects they've completed in the past that show, just a range of their ability and willingness to support and work with us on the tasks that we have ahead. At least if we do not have the internal capacity to manage all of that ourselves, and their overall positivity and excitement to tackle this particular project made them stand out to us. So I do have a recommendation.
Okay. So the superintendent's recommendation is that we enter into a contract with CFG Construction Solutions Group. Do I have a motion? And then we can have a discussion. Eva?
I move that we approve the building needs and space planning proposal as presented and authorize the superintendent to enter into a contract with CSG Construction Solutions Group.
Okay, do I have a second? Maria. Okay, motion made by Eva Moore, seconded by Maria Madon. Discussion.
I didn't hear anything about the financial differences, so I heard the communication, that's great. At the end of the day, we're sort of approving a financial transaction in essence. What were the differences? In essence, were you able to put with the light and show us a chart to say which one's still not?
And I can have Donna talk to this too, but I would think right now there's incomparable apples to apples, which is okay. When you look at it, I think the first two stages of construction solutions and we wrapped up. I don't think it's that far.
Did we ask them for clarification?
We did.
Presumably did.
We did.
And, we first learned about CSG and JFP with you that it sounds great, let's talk to somebody else,
Yep.
get a, make sure we're doing the right thing here, and so when we interviewed Colliers and gave them the tour, they responded with, and I gave them a list of, 5 phases of the project that we wanted to have priced out. Responded with 2 of the 5. And, threshold was, I just felt in some ways it wasn't like basing this on what I think the work's gonna take. Basing on what I expect. But it's I think they kind of lowballed, phase 1 and 2 a little bit, and then.
Does that leave any negotiation back to the part of the have a strong communication feel is the word I'm gonna use. Is there any negotiation here? Because I would argue that if somebody has come in with a lower bid, if they haven't, you know, going to support you in whatever you decide to do here, what I'm looking at is the overall loss on the plan. That's why I'm thinking, does that create a situation where you go back to your party to say that this is the party we like to go with you, but we've got this proposal and use that as negotiating tactic. We do that.
Like that point, I think one of the problems that I feel like we've encountered getting to that is, we don't know where the negotiation was, or what stage of the project, which doesn't necessarily mean that we can't go back to the other group. I think, also, the next step after through this is going to the town and asking for the funds for this project, because this is not going to be planning budget. And there's room for negotiation there as well. With I, because ultimately they would be supporting the council district budget. So I think there would be some, you know, some room to sort of look at that as well. And I think that's a great point to bring up.
So we're just going to ask. I should make sure.
Well, if this is the project that we've done, to get that information, but yes, we would take it to the town.
And the town could turn this funding down. If we're taking it to the town, there is a possibility that the town could turn this funding down or defer it.
There is that possibility. I think that we made a very good point in the presentation to provide, that we were doing our best to think about a problem that was going to occur in 3 or 4 years, and think proactively of how we were going to handle that problem. And I think that there is an understanding from that presentation that our capacity is reaching the limit of what we're able to do, especially with our instructional needs here. So I think that there's an understanding that we need some information to be able to know what is the best way to move forward for the district, for space planning and for education.
So, not in, so when we created this, our opinion was that first stage, we could handle. We would not go much further than the first stage or two, but that first stage or two, we could handle within this budget, and therefore it would be that.
My argument is a step less. So why else even taking this swap? I agree with her. If this is a town decision, this is a town asset. Then what? I get it that we can scrutinize which party to use. I'm going to go with you on that one. But at the same time, we're not the one who's first on this, and we're not making that decision. And like I said, it could be deferred, and it could be changed, and they could even find a third party come in and take over with more competitive. So I think I'm going to ask the same question. What is it that we're actually voting on?
Phase one. The rest of it. So I wouldn't want us to enter in and move forward with phase one unless we had assurance that the town had our back and was gonna, if we need to go into phase two and phase three, if we were doing it jointly. Because what I wouldn't wanna have is we enter into a contract and then the town is like, we all did that on our own and something happened or went wrong or if we didn't consider something the town wished we had considered, and then it causes longer down the road issues.
I just understand. I didn't get that feeling, but it was not feeling.
Yeah.
So, if I may, just as a refresher, because, you know, we talked about this a while ago and then we're coming back to it. So this is hiring a consultant to basically prepare the RFQ, RFP not to actually do the feasibility study. So it's just under 10 grand, say for phase one, to prepare the first RFP. In a sense, to hold our hands through the process, help us identify an appropriate consultant, all those pieces, but there will be a separate fee there'll be a separate consultant with a separate fee for the feasibility study. Is our expectation that that fee is being paid by the town or by us?
Our discussion with how did that fall?
Okay. Because there is a part of me that does worry. I mean, I'm looking, I'll just say as a consultant, that doesn't do this kind of consulting, but as a consultant, I'm looking at what they're charging and I'm like, that is so reasonable. Like, this is the fine, this is the fine rate. This is, for what we're getting, that doesn't look to me like, oh, they're trying to take up some cost. Doesn't mean we need to do it. My one concern with if we kick this back to the town just to even allot the fund to hire a consultant to actually create an RFP that will then get us to the next phase of trying to identify these consultants and then going to the town and say, here's what we need. We could be at this for another year. I really worry about that, and given the way our enrollment is growing, it's the trade-off. Is it worth potentially seeing this kicked down the road quite a ways? Is that $10,000? Is it worth it for $10,000 to risk delaying this process, getting this ball really rolling? And it may be. I mean, that would be my concern.
But I'm wondering, I'm assuming that they put in phase two and all of these other things because this entity would like to walk us through other parts of this process. And I guess what I'm saying is, if we're deciding to go with them, I would like the town to also be on board with going with that because they seem to want to engage in a longer term relationship. Seems like they're awesome. It seems like they're great. I just think this is going to be such a and I hear it. I hear that we need to move forward, and I know that this will be such a big deal in our town for the next couple of years that we can always say, hey, you guys are moving so slow. We feel like we need to move forward, or why it's taking so long. I would want, and especially an incoming new body to feel like we weren't doing this jointly together. Because at the end of the day, we're going to rely on them for so much of the helping to carry this over the line.
And I think that those are very good points, and that is part of why Donna and I immediately both times met with the town and reviewed this with Tony. We reviewed them and we both, and the first proposal, it is laid out all the way through, but that lead consultant that we spoke with said, this is the long-term vision, we can buy that same one. We don't need this for any of the other. So, we're not signing on for all of that. So, that was an interesting piece for us as well, when we had talked with the finance committee about, okay, that's a nice opportunity to, if we needed something, get a product that we can use, whether it's a long-term relationship or not. But we did review this concept, and again, it's all on film, but I do feel like the town was supportive of the fact. I was very clear that our budget should support student funding, period. And while it only facilitates student funding, if it's not funded. So I completely understand and agree with your point of view that today and we were all of that money. It's all the town's money anyway, but that money technically should not come out of our operating budget. We're looking to get it moving, but we will, certainly take your suggestion.
That's an easy solution. So I can reconcile both sides. So we can pay, I don't mind putting it on the budget this time, just get the credit from the town for the next year for the amount that we pay for the service. How does that?
budget-wise, if that. We have to, right, we have to pay.
No, so I agree that we pay, but these are after services. This is the building, we don't actually own the building, so technically, we can't really do anything with the building in that sense. And so, I agree with you, Stephen, we want to get this moving, and I agree that, I think the quick way to do this is to say, yes, pay for it. But I'm concerned in three regards. First, the steps. Second, where does the town stop and say to us, phase two could be yours too now, given you've got a budget overage this year. So I want to stop that. This is architecture.
Should I,
This is not school operation.
should specify at this point, phase one, the new entrance is not that phase one? Yeah, with the first time, right? So if we modify the motion, then after that's completed, we could have some, or after that was started, we can, there'd be discussion with the town about, we've moved forward on this, but we need some concrete, statement, what I would say. Right. And
Yeah,
we
we
need
need
some,
I think the problem. So, given it gets to that stage first, we're looking at $120,000 to get to that point. And so we're paying 10,000 of that from our budget. I feel this is a town hall. Because ultimately, we're only making a recommendation on who we like to do the work. I think that's what the motion to me intimates. Which one do we want? We've done our due diligence, we've looked at two, we've done all the work for us, we've got a preference. I think at this stage, that's all we can do. Vote to say, this is our preferred choice. Now it's up to you. The total cost is going to be this much. You want to go out and do whatever you do. I also understand the fact you want to get this moving quickly.
And it's, I completely get what you're saying. And it sort of who owns what, I will say just, I tend to be sometimes you have to fund it. And for just under 10 grand to climb the fund and start to create some momentum around this, I think there's potentially value for that. I mean, the crediting back, I agree it's now. You're right. And we're not carrying this whole thing. And the reality is 10 grand for a consultant is to create the proposal. What the consultant who will actually do the feasibility study is going to charge is going to be substantially more than this. This is a big investment. And it's really just a timing question. Or, do we want to say this is our recommendation, but if the town hasn't moved in the next, well, the reality is we've got new administration coming in January. So are they actually, is the Board of Selectmen really going to move on anything for several months? I mean, do we want to put a time frame on this? Because I do worry that we get to March, April, May, and the town hasn't done anything. I mean, maybe that tells us then this isn't going to go forward and we have the building we have and we're done. But I feel like we've done a lot of work to already begin to make the case for why we have. And particularly given the time horizon, just to get to any change. I mean, what would we need? Years and years till, there's some type of facility change. And the longer we wait, the more it's ultimately going to cost the town. Because construction costs are only going up, And so it's like I completely hear you, and I so agree with your point, and I'm like, gosh, if this gets stuck, it becomes another town priority that goes nowhere. I'm just like, when it's like 10 grand to potentially at least get some wheels moving. I feel like, and we have the capacity to do it without harming, learning. And sort of, that would be why I'd be inclined to go in that direction. But if the consensus is not, then I'm fine supporting where we are.
I think that opens a can of worms in many other areas. So there are many other contingencies we discussed last time. And so I don't want to go and say, let's devote 10,000 to something when we've got the new curriculum in reading that needs to be, the algebra we heard about again, it's swimming pool, I've got a list of things here. So I don't want to commit a cent that is not towards some of those priorities that are curriculum driven. I feel that we could give the town a timeline to say, we would like this by the end of January or the end of February, and let's get it moving. I think that's the key. I think we have to give them the opportunity. It's their asset at the end of the day. That's the way I see it. But I like the idea of greasing the wheel. I think that's a good idea, but I just don't see myself running into that. It's just happening. It's not going down that path.
So let's just go with them. When you look at the color, we don't specify phase 1, phase 2, but what they're describing appears to be what is included in phase 1. And, on page 2, they talk about, performing the effort on an hourly basis of a not to exceed limit of 9,500. So they are, for phase 1, I'm trying to pick apple to apple with what their narrative is and what is bullet pointed out on the other contract. So, and it's about 9,500 on the second one as well. So they're coming in about on par with that. My thought also, in addition to what has been already included with the town, was, Jake mentioned the pool, and perhaps there are some other buildings, some other areas in town that they would like us to investigate for potential space expansion. And we want to make sure we have that continued conversation to make sure that if that's something that needs to be included in the feasibility study, so they need to make sure that whoever we hire knows that that is something that needs to be looked at as well. Like maybe we need a life cycle analysis of the pool to figure out, I know they had one done recently, but then there were new issues that came up. Perhaps that's something that the town wants to include in this as well. While they're here, while they're studying the building, why not study all potential space? So I think no matter what happens, that continued conversation needs to happen. So we make sure that whatever we're including in the feasibility study is something that comes on board with and would have an input in as well, because there may be some other that we're not thinking of. And some other needs of the town that they would like to issue.
Clarifying point, Jay, on what you said, is your concern about, or is your proposed solution to clarify the language such that it's specific to phase 1, or are you saying that you're not on board with this at all because it's not, this is a town asset and really it should be on them altogether?
So the bottom line for me is it's self-executive. Given it's self-executive, we have nothing to do with any of the architecture.
Right.
And so I understand why it's come to us and I understand the impetus. But I don't feel that we should be responsible for the cost on any of the architecture. Because that's a capital investment. And that's where this should have been directed. I think we're still going to vote on the capital investment. Am I correct? Or have we already submitted our proposal?
We're voting on that too.
Okay. So we still have the opportunity to throw that in?
That's the next. That would be benefit start in July.
Okay, so it'll be the next academic year to move on. It's in the same building site, so, right? So if we use this in January, no, this. Okay, I see.
For me, I'm not willing to pay for it and move it ahead. What I'm a little more nervous about is that we're feeling that the town's okay with us moving forward. I'd like some assurance that the town, and not just who is currently, but who is also coming into those positions, are okay with us making this decision and moving forward. I think for me, this is like a joint project that we're gonna have to hold hands with the town on. And so I don't think we're starting off on the right foot if we don't have very clear assurances that yes, we support you guys moving forward. This is great that you guys can cover it, and we are right next to you, and we will then, you know, work alongside you if this is who you choose. So I get the, I think the feeling that actually makes me nervous, because I would like more explicit. So I would punt this to a January vote, and I would say between now and January, let's just turn that feeling into clear verbiage or.
A statement or something.
Yeah. Just so that, but I don't want to happen is that we start off in really good faith, and then all of a sudden it's perceived in a different manner.
Skin in the game, like the town, that have some skin in this game. So that at that point, I'm willing to make the 10,000 commitment. We've got a timeline, and then they can and say we'll cover the rest of it, phase 2, etc. I'd like to see that skin in the game. I think that's the argument. Yeah.
Okay, so we've had a lot of suggestions. So one, we can vote on the motion. Two, I believe the motion can be withdrawn. And, or we could table the vote until, is that right? Table the vote until. That,
How does that? Yeah.
Marcia, can we do that?
We
I'm
can
gonna check on that. I think we can table the motion until next month.
Yes, Lynn, you can.
Okay, do I have to have that motion withdrawn?
No, you would take a vote to table the motion.
Okay,
So are we presenting again at the January Board of Selectmen meeting? Like what kind of, how are we gonna get that information between now and June?
Well, and sort of, what's the threshold for feeling reassured? You know, is it Vonda having an oral conversation with the incoming first selectman? Is it, like, what will assuage the concern, or at least, you know, because I think, Aaron, your point is spot on. So I 100% agree. And, you know, but is an oral reassurance enough? Because I'm also looking at this and thinking, but it'll still have to be voted on, and who knows how everyone's going to vote. So is it the first selectman sort of reassures and says, yes, I support where we're going with this.
Yeah, better.
Okay, and as long as, and an oral reassurance, it doesn't have to be written. So.
You know,
Vonda, don't let, but I trust you. Just kidding, yeah.
Yeah.
First, let's, and, you know, but we have this conversation. The two budgets, well, for the community as a whole,
I agree. I like the person that you liked. I thought their proposal, and I liked that they were, that I'm totally fine. My thing is less about who should we go with and way more about just wanting to make sure proposals.
somebody will have to deduct the bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, to run out of room. This just says someone's gonna write an RFP for us to have all our systems analyzed to know what state they're in before we do it. So, yeah.
and I think the incoming board has been briefed on some of this, is expecting this from us. This is not a surprise to them. They're expecting this, from us, and I think that everyone is well aware of the fact that we have students moving in and the time constraints that we are working with, and the understanding that we have to do something. And we are only gonna know what that something is with information. There's no way to guess. That's not the appropriate way to go forward. We need this information, and this information done properly costs money. And there is an understanding that gathering that information is essential, not just to make sure that we have you know, very importantly, but not just to make sure that we have the appropriate space, but to make sure that, you know, this fits in with the plan of the town and that we are moving forward in the most fiscally responsible and efficient way possible. And there is a recognition that there are some time constraints on this and that we want to get moving because we know that we have students moving into our town, coming to our building that our school should expand. So I think that this is on people's radar, it's expected, and I think that the consensus that we definitely need information to be able to.
So do you think we should present the board of trustees or just talk to the new?
I think that represents stuff to a certain extent.
Sorry, here, what did you say?
I think some of that work and giving some background information has already taken place.
Right.
In preparing people that this is.
Vonda and Donna had had extensive conversations with Tony about it, so I think that they're, and Beth, and I think that that's been shared.
And Maria, you're saying you feel confident that the incoming board is also
I
on
think
board?
I can speak for other people, so that's, I mean, I certainly don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but what I can say is that this has been discussed. And there, and of course, especially discussed after our presentation in July, to board selectmen, and people know we need to do something to expand our space, and configure our space, make appropriate educational spaces for the students that we have coming in. How we do that is going to be a cost. And the only way to go about that, the most efficient way possible, is to make sure that we have the information that we need to move forward. So I do think that people have that understanding and know that we need to gather this information so that we can move forward with whatever those possibilities. Yeah.
And I would just add, I mean, I think to the point that you can make progress, is also that, you know, sort of the conveying, we want to be in partnership on those, we're willing to find them come, but we're really not willing to do it beyond this first stage. You know, sort of getting this, you know, hiring the consultant to write the RFP for the first phase. Beyond that, our expectation is that the town is on board, if the town acts as, and they're going to be covering it.
You know, the part that's on, maybe part I need to understand, because I'm looking at the timeline. They've got an October, November, that's 2 months. And they've got a December, January, that's another 2 months. If we go and ask for funds for the next year, you're still gonna be phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and I'm looking at what, about 80,000, 90,000 then? So what worry here is that if you say 10,000 at the beginning, then you're sort of having to wait till July and fund it to keep it going. However, if the town, we can go to the town and say, look, this is a town project, we really need you, you understand, we get the sentiment, and you understand this, we need full funding on this, and this is the staging of it. That's the way I see it, rather than us having to pick pieces up as we go along. This is my worry.
I think the challenge is, I mean, what I liked about the phasing that these consultants did, and the fact that it is a la carte, you can kind of figure it out. Like some of the work in the later phases, it's about sort of building that public campaign for, you know, to gain support in a referendum. Is that something the town is actually going to pay for? Is that something they feel they may be capable of doing on their own? I have no idea. So, you know, but I do think that we as a board, in order to continue to do our work to build a case for the community, for why a critical focus, we need to have this hard information. I mean, we have the excellent work the task force did before, but we really need this feasibility study. And hey, if the town's not going to pay for it, you know, that tells us something as well. You know,
And that's my hope, that this is a town asset, the town should be willing, they've understood lately with the root costs. The longer we delay things double.
Yeah.
So
And I think
What
it's
I'm
that
hearing-
understanding that it's
let's get
one
this
of the
moving
impetus.
quickly, make the commitment, stick to the timeline, get things done.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that we do the first part and now go for more negotiation, then other parts of the phases will be discussed. And so in a way, I'm really willing to sort of pump this to the town and say, this is what the whole thing is gonna cost. This is how long it's gonna take if we get this moving really quickly. We've had excellent presentations. You've heard all about this. We need this. And the town has always been very responsive, at least from when I've been in your position, very responsive on these things.
I
They
that's
understand this is a crown jewel, right?
Yes.
Phase one is only 2 months, phase two then is 2 months, so, but hypothetical, dive in today and I'll put it, spend the project. That would be like maybe February and March. Theoretically, phase two then in April and May, so it's still in the budget. Right?
Theoretically, when this was first priced out, it was in an effort to get information that might provide, even if we had the larger ed spec amount into the funds that we're requesting in the spring. And that obviously didn't happen. So they were making an effort to meet that timeline for us, and we didn't do that as a whole.
I guess I just am hearing what Jay's saying, so if we, either way, we kind of have to go to the town now to ask them. Whether we're asking for phase one or phase two, even if we're gonna cover phase one, now is when we need to be going to the town to ask for phase two in order to keep the project.
So maybe that's a good thing we should do for their January board of selectmen.
Right, I mean, it seems to me like, even if it's. Yeah, and I guess, so then I'm wondering if we're gonna go to if we're gonna go there in January. The board of selectmen.
So it would be
Then it-
before the board of ed.
Right, it would seem to me like maybe we got a vote in press, go back to the board of selectmen. We say, this is what we're thinking of doing, even if it's that we're gonna vote on covering the first phase next week at our regular board of ed meeting. And we can say that to them, we're providing the public information and then information that we plan on voting to approve phase one. We plan on incurring those costs, and we're here to tell you that, so that you're prepared, because it will not be more than, 2 more months before we'll need funding for phase two and then beyond, and that would be part of this fiscal year.
I think it's just ask for
Right,
the remainder of it. Because then that's the commitment.
right, and then we all know what each other's doing.
And the study itself. which
Yeah.
is quite
Right.
Well, that's the thing, because it's actually, because it's like 2 months to write the RFP, but then there's hiring the firm who will actually spend months and paying these consultants to oversee the consultants doing this over that period of time, which is really where we're gonna incur the big cost.
And
Yes.
it said, final document to school administrators prior to public release. I would think somebody over at the town side would also want to review the before it goes public as well. It just seems strange to me that like if this is a town building, that the school administrators are running. That's the part that I'm struggling. Like, I don't feel like it should be, I don't actually think it's in our best interest to have you run. I think you're very confident and I think you'll push it in a way that I hear the fear that the town will push it. I totally hear it and I think there's some valid fear. But I also think we have to balance that with the fear of like the town then saying, but this isn't really your building, because in reality it's not, and so we should have been running this project. And so I think there also needs to be some clarification of the town of like, who's in charge actually of this project, because
Isn't there a town building committee?
Their
That's
charge
normally
is,
set up?
yeah, the current building committee, their charge is the roof and the drainage issues, so this would need to be another.
That is my vote.
if the town says, we're totally fine with the school administrators running it. I just want to hear that from the town.
It's unusual to give the town permission to configure road. Because the people that know that best are here.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense, for them in January, we should say that. I just want them to, I mean, maybe
I
I'm
don't
wrong,
think we should.
maybe I'm wrong in that, but I just want to make sure that the communication is clear.
So, do we want to have a motion to table this vote until the January meeting?
Well, if you were gonna present this to Board of Selectmen in January, then, that meeting would occur before Board of Education. So that if we voted in January, then it would be until the February.
Okay, move to approve the proposal as presented by CSG for presentation to the Board of Selectmen. Do we want to do that? Okay. So,
Because I think there's two separate pieces, right? There's the funding side, and then there's the proposal. I think the proposal is what I put in the building. That was my initial
Yeah.
thinking, and then I heard the finance piece, and I wasn't. So I
Okay,
wanted
so-
to commit,
so Stephen, do you want to modify your motion that's on the table?
okay,
To approve the building and proposal as presented, by CSG.
Well, so it's moving that we present the proposal to the Board of Selectmen. And.
Well, I think it's a movement that we're choosing one group over the other.
Okay.
Right. I think we're moving to CSG proposal to present to the Board of Selectmen at their January. January meeting is second Tuesday, is that okay? Second Wednesday, 10.
Can we get on that
I was
agenda?
just thinking that, can we get on that agenda?
I'm sure we could call and get on their agenda.
Okay.
We will find out who to call to get on their agenda, just, you know, as we.
Yeah, I mean, if
Well-
not, it can be February.
Vonda always did the report. They
So-
decided now, that was, right, the building, yeah, well, that's because they were.
Do we need a motion to say that we're recommending CSG? Or can't, since we're saying that ultimately the town needs to sign off on this to move forward, our recommendation really doesn't matter. It's, they can make their own decision because we're saying you're gonna pay. It sounds like what we're saying is ultimately, you should be paying for this whole thing. It's your building, you should be covering any aspect of this cost. We want to clarify, that the district will lead this, will provide that, leadership for this, but that it is fully the town owning this. And if that's the case, then I don't see that we actually have a role in approving anything. Because it's not, like, we're not, I mean, we can say, we as a board vote that we like CSG, but everything else, in a sense, what it sounds like we're saying is, we're tossing back to you, town, to say, okay, we're gonna own this. Even if you lead it, we're gonna own it. We're gonna own all the costs. We're gonna be on board.
Well, I think it's more than just liking this group. I mean, Donna and, Rhonda and Lynn, and we all have really looked through both proposals. Kind of done the background research as opposed to the town starting from zero and not, like sending out another RFP.
Right.
For proposals again, to look at that, then we really vetted these two proposals to go forward and that, for what we need and for creating those educational spaces. This is the proposal that's in the that we need from an educational standpoint. this is the information we need from an educational standpoint to move forward, because there is the part that it's the buildings, but also the point of changing part of the building is to increase its capacity, yes, but also to make sure that there are appropriate educational spaces while we increase. It's not just about like building a bunch of square classrooms and saying, here, we made more space. And so that educational piece, I think we do have a say in which company we think we would like to do that job, so that we make sure that we're creating the educational spaces that we need. And I think that's the part that we kind of, as the Board of Education own, that we're betting that this is the company we're going with because this is the company that we believe will help move us forward as far as the spaces, the appropriate space that we need for our programming. And that's the part that
Right, although, but in the sense of what I'm saying, and this is where, like, I don't want to take us down a rabbit hole, but it's like, we're not taking that on. I mean, in essence, what we're saying is we as a board are not taking on that expense. You town need to take that on. So I'm just thinking, if someone came to me and said, we recommend this consultant, and you write the check, I'd be like, no, I'll go back to the proposals and take a look at myself, and I'll let you know who I think it should be, because I'm writing the check.
But it's almost like when we do our budget and then to the town doesn't then build into the budget, right? We're telling the town what we need to engage the children. Nothing like credit, they might say, not afford it, we'll give you this, a little bit less, now figure it out. We're saying, hey town, this is what we need for us to begin this work. This is the proposal, we vetted proposals, this is the proposal we're gonna go with. This is what they're doing, this is the cost. Now, the town comes back and says, look, we're willing to fund the first 2 phases, and that's it, that's all we're gonna commit to right now. That's fine, they're allowed to do that, but we're allowed to say, this is the proposal that's gonna give us the information that we need in order to make sure we can educate.
It's akin to the capital budget. We make a recommendation that we reduce trees down and this. That's all. We're making that recommendation.
Right, and we're doing it, and I don't want to belabor this. So, and Aaron, I think that's a good point. So is it, you're moving that the town consider, that we're moving that we recommend, yeah, we move to recommend to the town CSG to conduct feasibility studies needed for school.
well, I would say for phase 1, to write the RFP for the architectural services of phase 2.
See, I'm
worried about
Can we not just,
I think if we're going to the town and we're gonna need phase 1.
We are, but phase 2 is managing the feasibility study, and it's the feasibility study that's gonna cost potentially the 6 figures, so if they're not gonna fund the feasibility study, then we don't need to do that. Phase 2, but I hear what you're saying, we wanna make sure that we're moving forward on that, but I think,
Well, they can do the feasibility study and phase 2.
the way I sort of I think these guys at CSG really well in their title. They said feasibility study, educational classifications, and grant that. Right. We put it all in there, and I think that's.
Okay, what's your motion?
You gotta Well, wait, should I retract?
To the Board of Selectmen?
Yep. And then to Board of Selectmen,
That
retaining BSG to conduct the preparation of a feasibility study, RFP with various options.
Okay, so I see Marcia like moving, shaking her head. She's trying to write this down. So can you say it nice and loud into that microphone?
Okay. We need to recommend to the Board of Selectmen retaining Construction Solutions Group, CSG, to conduct the preparation of a feasibility study RFQ/E with various options.
Okay,
And perhaps to consider the full proposal. Study. Like, we're recommending you start with phase one, but we also wanted to consider.
Right. Feasibility study with various options leading to contracting for architectural services.
Even I just released that, they wrote it in, and they just says RFQ/A, the feasibility study, educational specification, and grant application. I thought that covered it all the bases.
Right, but in a sense, we're saying also paying for the 6 figures.
That's
For the
the
We're gonna conduct the feasibility.
So it's feasibility study, educational specification, and grant application. Portion of us are, I think the administration's job is that administration, sort of educational specification. Like I said, it's town asset, so I think it's up to them.
Yeah, I mean, good.
Okay, so I.
okay,
the date.
and then,
Okay.
modification.
Okay. I move that we recommend to the Board of Supervisors, Board of Selectmen, oh my God, Board of Selectmen retaining Construction Solutions Group, CSG, to conduct the preparation of a feasibility study, RFQ/P, with various options. And
Where was that line, Jay?
So I would just say, take the options that educational specifications and grant. You're saying the whole thing, really,
With ed spec.
and grant application. It's right at the top,
Okay,
it's right at the top.
got it.
Under the RE, under the read.
Okay.
right at the top.
And are you?
Yeah, I
Seconding that? Marcia, are you all set with that motion? I'm sorry. Get up.
Lynn, the audio is just so messed up.
Yeah, all right, I'm gonna write it down and I can give it to you tomorrow, Marcia, okay? So the motion is to recommend to the Board of Selectmen, retaining CSG Construction Solutions Group to conduct the preparation of a feasibility study, RFQ/P, with ed spec and grant application, correct? That's what I've written down, is that right? Okay, that's,
I'm like,
motion made by Stephen, seconded by Maria. All those in favor? Yeah, I see you waving, Sarah Beth. Brooke, I see your hand. Okay, unanimous, Marcia. Unanimous. Okay, phew. All right. And we're all set.
I know, and I just knew we didn't do the 12, the thing you said, are you gonna cover this stuff, or the later, here, okay. I just want to say that all of this discussion makes me realize that we are not alone. Like, we've been feeling very alone with this, and so the more that you all talk about this, the more it makes us feel like, okay, we have a group to help us with this. It's not a project. It's huge. So thank you.
And thank you. Thank you for the work you've done collecting and speaking to these gentlemen and, great.
Thank you for getting that second.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. Ms. Sherman, Beecher Road School update is next on the agenda.
questions that were asked last week. One of the questions that was asked was about historical data for kindergarten and first grade, the number of sections and students. So other than 2020, when we had a remote class in every single grade level, we have consistently had 6 sections of kindergarten and 5 sections plus 1 multi-age section of grade 1. I had the numbers broken out more fully if anybody would like it, but generally speaking, it's been 6 sections in kindergarten and 5 sections in grade 1 plus multi-age to make 6 sections. Another question that came up last week was around supplies. So I wanted to just reassure the board and the public that we are going to be reviewing our supply lists, and we are going to be asking parents, just kidding, reel that back in. We're going to be asking teachers to buy some of the items that they typically ask for on the supply lists in bulk. One of the examples that we often say is scissors, for example. So rather than asking parents to buy scissors every single year, asking classroom teachers to buy scissors for their classroom supply, and then just replacing the couple that they may need from year to year. We're also going to look into buying some items in bulk as a school community, rather than, again, asking parents to buy items every single year. So, for example, pencils, crayons, markers, that kind of stuff. We're going to look into buying those items in bulk. And hopefully, right, out of our budget, not out of teachers' pockets. Thank you, Bob. And hopefully growing that list in the future. So this year we may start with only a few items. We might add some more in the future. The library also came up as a question. So just to address that, right now we have 1 library teacher, and she is able to teach all of the classes with no overlap or need for coverage, and within the current special schedule, I should say. The one thing that is challenging, the one area that is challenging right now with 1 librarian is managing the volume of books and all of the work that goes into maintaining our very large library collection. This includes activities such as anything budget related, so the ordering, the maintaining of all of the software that we use in the library. And it also includes things like processing new books, checking books in, checking books out, shelving, and like I said, all the library software. I will say that our current librarian is coming up with some really creative solutions to address some of these concerns, and including using library student volunteers in the morning. She has a little crew of students that come in every morning to help out. And she's also doing a lot of student agency. She's really building student agency, and they are now responsible for self-checkout, which is kind of amazing, actually. And the other thing I wanted to mention about the library is that we are seeking volunteers. So in the last couple of principals' messages, I have asked for parent volunteers to come and join us in the library, and that's a way that we can help mitigate some of these challenges that our current librarian is facing. Okay, continue on. Any questions about that so far, or continue on? Continue on. Okay, so a couple of more updates. I wanted to mention our professional development. The day before Thanksgiving, we had a professional development. It was a half-day professional development for our staff, and we launched a book study that we are engaging in around the science of reading. The book is called Shifting the Balance. Not Shifting the Balance. The book is called Shifting the Balance, sorry. And we actually have it available to all of our teachers, and there's actually 2 books, one for primary and one for intermediate. So we dove into some of that work and had some really powerful conversations. There was also a number of other activities happening throughout the day. Our amazing technology department offered some Tinkercad and app review work with some of our upper grade teachers. Our PE and health department were able to go off-site and get some professional learning for them. And there was a lot of other topics happening throughout the day, but our big focus was around that shifting the balance work, which was really tied to the science of reading and our literacy work that we're doing. Another quick update is around the PTO book fair. We once again had a really amazing PTO book fair, and Cindy Kruger and all of the amazing volunteers that came made it happen. It was It's always one of my favorite things. Mostly because I love books and seeing kids get books is always super fun. The kids loved it, watching them walk down the hall in a line, holding their books up and trying to read and not bump into the person in front of them. It's always really fun. And just a big shout out to the PTO for organizing and running and making that happen. It's fun. And the last thing I want to quickly mention is that we also just recently had our winter concert led by Mr. Caldwell and Miss Fonda and supported by Miss Lemke. And our band, strings, and choir all performed. I'm sure if you saw it, you know just how beautiful it was. It's always a good experience for our students and just a strong testament to the music department here at Beecher. And I want to also mention that a bunch of our students actually went to CMEA regionals. CMEA is the Connecticut Music Education Association, and they host a regional audition. And we had the most number of students out of our local elementary schools get accepted. So 2 orchestra students, 5 band students, and 5 choir students were accepted into CMEA. So that's pretty amazing. And again, a huge testament to our amazing music department.
Thanks, and thanks for that update on, some of the questions that were asked last time.
The question, I don't know if Don was gonna cover it on, but the last board meeting, we had a lot of parents come in and ask for an update. 6th grade, please have an update for us on 6th grade. I know I've been getting emails, so,
Do you mean the hiring?
no, this is the hiring and so these students in 2 of the 6th grade classes, this is probably their 4th teacher in 7th grade. Am I right? We've had some substitutes in there.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, absolutely. So we did start our hiring process and we actually successfully hired 1 candidate. And she will start in the new year. She's very excited.
You can.
Okay, so it's Noelle Guerra. She was an intern at Beecher all last year. She's well known in the community. The students actually are very excited, I think, to have her. And as are the staff, she did an incredibly great job through the interview process. And she will be starting in the new year in one of the classrooms. And the rest of the interview process is still continuing as we seek out a second candidate. And until then, Linda Johnson and Grace Halsey are currently teaching in those classrooms. And we are hoping that in the new year, we will have a second candidate that we can share. We are sending updates out to the families, so they are getting regular information about where we are in our process and how things are going, and we will continue to do that.
Thanks, Elisa.
Anyone more? Questions?
Thank you. We think that's you, Mike.
Okay, okay, we met last Thursday at 4 p.m. Main topics, one was kindergarten aid mission, and we had a curriculum update for reading. So for the kindergarten age admission change, I think most folks are aware that there is the new legislation that changes the admission date January to September 1. So a little background on that. Connecticut had one of, or still has currently, one of the latest dates in the country. And I think there were only 3 other states that had dates around the time of ours. And so this is Connecticut's effort to realign with most of the other states in the country. And so we talked about one of the requirements as a part of that legislation, which has to do with exceptions to that change. So parents can request exceptions and districts are required to administer assessments to determine whether the the child can enter at a earlier time date than September. So what does that process look like? Well, that's up for districts to determine. The state doesn't provide a lot of guidance around that. They don't provide any suggested assessments to use. And so districts are making up their own, either making up their own assessment tools or selecting them. Bond has shared that our plan at the district as of now is to develop our own assessment tool that captures dimensions of things like numeracy, literacy, social skills and language, motor, and also involves some kind of parent input. And so the understanding is that a kid would come in and be assessed. They would be observed. They would be asked to perform certain tasks, and we would have a rubric that assesses the extent to which this child is ready for along with the parental input. So that's the plan as of now. There is no assessment tool developed as of yet, but it will. That's our process. We talked about the need for communication around that to parents. So I believe, Vonda, you mentioned that this will happen after this meeting.
Probably Thursday.
Okay. That will start communicating with parents about this process that we're developing and will eventually be available to them if they so choose to. So I think that covers what we discussed for change and the admission date. In terms of the curriculum update, we know that the state rejected our application for a waiver for the reading submitted. So Vonda updated us noting that we are, they're in the process of reviewing the various curriculum that the state has recommended. And they will update us at a later date with regard to that. In terms of math, we were originally planning to get an update on that in January. And Vonda noted that they're going to be a little more time to do that, given some of the challenges around, or some of the time commitments rather, around budget development and some of the challenges that we've been facing around staffing. So February is now when we're expecting to get an update on the math curriculum. So that's curriculum.
You have something you want to add? No, Michael did a wonderful job. Thank you very much. The only thing I would say is, I have begun drafting a communication regarding the new kindergarten entrance age and our process. I do anticipate on sending it out, probably not tomorrow, but the day after at the latest. And, parents will be able, as soon as we return in January, to start that process by sending a letter or an email to Principal Sherman. So they can send a letter or an email, that's the process, to the principal, and we will have our first screening in February. Because we have pulled together some pretty solid ideas about our screener. We'll probably have a very quick input form for the parents to fill out, whether it's a Google form or something like that. We have it nailed down, but I would imagine it's our technology, and get to work on that so that parents can say, my child doesn't meet that cutoff, but I'm very interested in having them assessed. And that first assessment block will begin in February, and then May, August are our benchmarks.
I wonder, does it make sense in the bedroom meeting? Make a 5-minute announcement, show exactly where it is on the website, you can go with.
Yeah,
Parents can go with.
absolutely. Great.
Let's, I think, do that, because the communication part is very easy.
Yep, it's actually one of my thoughts in January or February to have someone get a little bit of a navigation as to where our house is. I suspect that there are things there that people will know are sitting there. Yeah, so that would be great.
Are you gonna have also a, no earlier than birth date? Like no earlier than September 1st? I'm just thinking, so
The
new
letters are very
year.
clear that I drafted.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think it's the who will and homes.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But question very quickly, just on the math challenges, the pre-algebra, I guess, is the best that it is.
Jay, have to do a better job talking into the bit,
Okay.
because Sarah Beth just
Okay.
texted and said
Okay,
she's really having a hard time.
okay, Sarah Beth, can you hear me?
Oh, Cheryl gave thumbs up, so that's better. And Brooke too, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so are there any budget implications? Because we won't know till February, but have we built some in already with our, no, for the math side of things, so I know we're looking. Okay. Okay, no staffing needs there? If we just, my thinking is that we've had a pre-algebra class over. And so if we're having a pre-algebra class again at some time in the future, there would be no staffing, no implications.
There would be no steps. We can,
Yep, thank you.
Great. I just have a question on the tool that we're gonna use to assess the students coming into kindergarten and the endpoint of that tool and an endpoint of that tool from a child development standpoint. And having had older children go through middle school and now through high school and understanding that the subject matters and the rigor and the pace at which all of those subjects proceed at those higher levels now are much faster and in much earlier grade levels than I experienced when I was in school. When they start writing research papers, when they start, analyzing certain novels, is happening at a much earlier pace than I remember it happening. And a child may look ready for kindergarten, but how do we know that being a whole year earlier when they get to middle school or high school is going to benefit them? Knowing that there are more challenges now in middle school and high school than there ever were before, I don't know if we could ever create a tool that would be around long enough to test to know that that tool was verified to show that this level of advancement at 4 years old is going to lead to continuing to be on par with their peers when they're 12, 13, 14 years old. So it just kind of, having gone through the different grade levels, I guess this is more, to the parents, whereas, they may be reading early, they may be, verbal early, but at that age, a lot of them catch up, and you really want to make sure at that crucial period of their life, middle school and in high school, that they are able to be on par with their peers. And I think that is a concern that I might not have thought of if this were my first couple of children coming through kindergarten, and now looking back at that perspective is now something that would concern me. Maybe with my oldest, I might have said, yeah, go ahead, go. And now with my youngest, I'm like, no. One more year, because the rigors at the higher levels it's much more than when I was in school. And so I just think it's something to think about that, maybe moving them along at an earlier pace or at an earlier age may not be the best thing. Maybe the educators were right and that they should have waited. But I realize we have to have this tool because that's what the law says we need to do. So we will pursue them.
thank you.
We did talk about the importance of trying to understand what. We did talk about the importance of trying to understand once this tool is created, how these kids are performing, trying to understand how the kids are performing in relation to our decisions around the use of the tool. To develop a tool, though, that is psychometrically valid and reliable would take a lot of effort and money on the part of that. Yeah, and lots of time. Yeah.
Jeff Sampson, I will try to fill in here. So at the Board of Selectmen meeting on the 12th, I'll step back a minute. I think we heard from Beth or Mika that the Board of Selectmen felt like they'd heard a lot about the roof, but they hadn't heard a lot about the site improvements work that we wanted to do. And so as part of Vonda's monthly report with the Board of Selectmen, we brought David Stein from Silver Petrocelli in to give a little presentation on both the roof and the site improvements that had come up through the facilities committee and were being recommended to the Board of Selectmen for funding. And happy to report that they moved forward. They voted to move the 2 projects forward to the Board of Finance for approval. And then I think they're going to come back to the Board of Selectmen to set hopefully a date for a special meeting where they can be voted on by the electorate.
Quick clarification, Donna. Did that include the site improvements as
Yes,
well?
it did, both.
All
So
of them?
all of them, about 1.4 million for the roof and maybe a little less for the site improvement.
Thank you. Okay, thank you
Thanks.
for making that. And the site improvement in the roof, the parking lot, and the trees, the drainage. issues,
Nice.
All the funding, the vegetation.
Right,
Excellent,
and,
thank you.
and, David Stein to those. Yep. Yeah, I'm trying to, make sure Sarah gets, and now hear better, which is the answer is yes. Because it's still fuzzy, Anthony. Which is okay with Bonza. Okay, policy committee. Yeah. So policy committee, met, and we have 2 policies that are in the consent agenda, for 4:30 review. The first is the finance committee policy, so please note some of those changes in red. And the second policy is the building use policy. The policy is included as well as the regulations, but know that when you come back in January, you'll be voting on the policy, but certainly if you have any input on the regulations, we have those along as well. There are a couple of things with policy, coming up in addition to CAVE review of our policies. We are still waiting for some guidance from the state on reviewing Title IX. And we are waiting for guidance from the state related to one of the last pieces of legislation that was passed regarding the climate and voting policy, which will need to be reviewed. But CAVE is currently working on some guidelines for that before the policy committee considers it. So a lot upcoming. Any questions on that? Okay. CAVE liaison report. Do you have anything? I don't have anything new to add. And I'm moving kind of a quiet month. And finance committee report.
Yep. So, well, I'll review finances and then we've got a motion. Yes. And then we've got a motion to consider. So just to kick off with, of course, all due credit to Donna. Fiscal year is 42% complete at this point. Our total projected savings combined for all categories are currently estimated at $340,000, which is up from $294,000 in November. there is only, I'll start with the negative side of the ledger because there's only one series where we're in the red. And that is the 600 series materials and supplies, where we'll be slightly over budget by about $2,000 due to having to purchase some testing supplies. All right, so that puts everything else on the positive side, although it's a little more nuanced than that, as you can see in the budget narrative, which I'm basically regurgitating. 100 series, we have salary savings of approximately 140,000. This is due to teacher turnover, and this is accounting for about 30,000 of that increase from November. And the halftime psychologists, we're also down through paras. On the flip side, this does include the unbudgeted SRO, and at some point we may seek a budget transfer to sort of even things out. But still, we have a net savings for non-certified salaries. 200 series benefits are currently on track. 300 series purchase professional services. We have $123,000 savings with the change in the SRO model. However, the savings would be higher if not for the increased costs of long-term substitutes due to staff vacancies. 400 series purchase property services. We're currently projecting savings of just under 10,000 overall. We'll need to purchase some window doors for special education classrooms. We had that copier bill for 11 grand. That was unexpected. But on the positive side, so far the winter has been warmer and wetter than expected, although it's still early. More concretely, we expect 25,000 in savings due to pool filters not running as the pool still remains empty. Unintended savings, but nonetheless a savings. 500 series other purchase services. We currently anticipate small savings in workers' comp and liability insurance, as well as internet expenses. Although we have had some increased costs for special education transportation, and that nets us out a savings or a savings of 3,000. 700 series furniture and equipment, we're in the green by 37,000 approximately, since we're able to pre-buy Chromebooks with the fiscal year 2023 surplus. However, we have also committed 8,000 to additional technology purchases. 800 series dues and fees currently on track. 900 series miscellaneous expenses, it's primarily the Ezra nurse, also on track. So that's the money part of it. Then just to move along, we've got a capital budget proposal. So should I just make a motion on that? All right. I move that we approve the 2025-30 capital budget as presented for submission to the town.
Do I have a second to that motion? Second, Aaron Williamson. Motion made by Stephen Lawrence, seconded by Aaron Williamson. So the capital budget was presented back on November 20th, 2023. I don't believe that there were any questions that were submitted either to the Finance Committee or to Donna or Fonda. So is there, are we ready to vote on that? Okay. So the motion is to approve the 2025 to 2030 capital budget as presented on November 20th, 2023 for submission to the town for their consideration. All those in favor? I see your hand, Brooke. I see your hand, Sarah Beth. Jay, are you giving me
When no
Great.
changes made, right? Donna?
No. Sorry to say, we did, but that was before, in finance committee, we talked about accelerating a few of the items, like the elevator and stuff, so, but that's the way it was presented to the whole board.
We have a sun sinking.
They don't really do that, at the town, but
you know, we did some of the things like the casework, you know, we still have in here to just chip away at it, throughout the 6 years, but you know, those are also items where if we have a little surplus in a year, we could throw money at that as well. But yeah, we don't really use the fixing ones.
We just thinking around with the numbers just to accelerate the elevator.
Yeah, just say, hey, this, you know, elevator is important and we'd be, you know, now that we know that there are no replacement parts for this, then the board would have to be sent away, and we'd be without an elevator for a long period of time, you know, we just wanna.
There's like one person who knows that.
Right.
It's just one person.
Okay, so we're ready to vote?
All those in favor, once again, I'm sorry. Okay, and Sarah Beth had raised her hand the last time, so, that's unanimous, Marcia. Okay, and thank you for your work on that. Donna and Gonza, appreciate that. Proposed superintendent 24-25 operating budget. Once again, I don't think there were any submitted questions to finance, Donna or Vonda.
I don't know whether it's in that budget or it seems like maybe we could even do it in the current budget. But I do remember over the years, I've heard a lot about how we used to send teachers for responsive classroom. I do remember over the years that hearing a lot that we used to have funding to send teachers out for responsive classroom training, and that since COVID that has kind of stopped, and we've since had a lot of new teachers into the district. And I'm just wondering if we can either use some of the funding that we're saving this year or some way to get kind of like almost do like a refresh to make sure all of our staff have really, really been appropriately trained in responsive classroom work.
Okay, Vonda has an answer for that.
We actually, we talking to me, we actually did that this summer.
Oh, all the teachers?
No, you can't make them,
Oh.
because it's in the summer.
Right.
We opened it to every teacher in para. We have a trainer on staff. One of our teachers is a responsive class trainer, Mr. DePalma. And we had a large group of paras and teachers attend. It was an in-house training, 4 days, 4.5 days. Yep, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
We continue to do that every summer, hopefully.
I mean, yeah, it depends on the interest. I mean, it's a large chunk of money, well over probably $30,000. It's
Okay.
very expensive
Yep.
training. So depending on the staff interest, we can certainly, sometimes you lose interest if you run it every year.
Yep.
But we also have the ability based on staff interest to open it to other surrounding districts who use responsive classroom and welcome them in for a fee. So we didn't do that this past year because we knew we had a large number of staff that needed it and were interested. So you are on the ball.
Okay, so I'm going to remind the board that we are going to take action on the operating budget at a special Board of Education meeting in early January. The budget still sticks. There's been no changes to it since it was proposed, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
You guys.
And, so if there's anything that we want to address tonight, to have a question for that January meeting, Donna and Vonda can, write down the questions, provide an answer for you at our early January meeting, which I'll be talking about getting on calendars as in a minute, for a date for that. And, when the vote will be taken.
You do have a new slide or in your packet that we talked about contractual versus discretionary funds. So if you want to take a peek at that, it's just very loud and clear.
Is that only in the packet? Is it online as well? 'Cause I didn't
Yeah,
see it.
it's the board bill.
It is. I couldn't find it.
Is that page 4? Page 4.
It has green
bar. Yeah, yeah. So it's page 4 of the
Oh,
packet.
Right at the front.
right at the front.
Okay, I was looking at the slides.
Contractual versus discretionary.
So our, our increase in our budget that we're requesting this year is $662,109. And $641,805 of that dollar is salary and benefit. So, you know, $40,000 is the rest of the stuff. So, you know, it's just, there's not, you know, we can't really surprise ourselves into a better number. Because they're all, you know, some of the, now we're being helped by the fact that we, you know, we don't have to pay. We don't have to pay for Officer Lynch out of the other things this year. And maybe something we could talk about is the pool. You know, I kind of budget as if the pool is not open in terms of my utility. I don't know that to be true. I talked to the town today, and I don't know that they had a strong feeling one way or the other. I think they think they'll know more in a month or so. You know, so that could be a $25,000 to $30,000 swing in utilities if we want to bump those up to show that the pool will be running, you know. So, but I think they maybe don't have their arms around how big a problem they have and what it's going to cost.
Until they get
Right.
that it costs.
Actually, I mean, I love this. And it's interesting, like the summary at the bottom is great because it catches your eye, but I think also having the detail on what the line items for discretionary, like HVAC and building maintenance.
Right. Right.
Yeah, technically it's discretionary, but it's really not.
Right. You
you
could
know.
just wait till it breaks and then call somebody, but you know, what are you gonna do?
Exactly. So much of this is, you know, necessary to have if you're going to run an educational institution and not, you know. And so I think it's helpful for people like, oh, well, you know, can you bring down that discretionary piece? This is what you're bringing down if you do that. It's a very
Right.
I did have one or two, like, sort of more observations, and I think going along the same line as Stephen, where I sort of looked at this and I looked at the discretionary components, and you put them as discretionary, like heating and stuff, I would have said absolutely not in the school. So I found it was something like 93% of the budget was what I called semi-fixed or fixed, and you had 7% discretion. So on 17 million, I said, what's 7% of 17 million? My math is awful, but it's probably about 10% is 170,000, so it's about 150,000. That's the discretion. However, I sort of still had one or two quick points, and again, just going along the same avenue and thinking about some of the things that are happening with some of the cost breakdown. So one of the things you said was the strategic plan priorities. I'm looking at the overview of budget drivers, and the first thing you guys said was student enrollment. And at first, I looked at everybody, and everyone was like, "Yeah, that makes sense." I want to explain to you that doesn't in terms of the operating budget. Why? It's actually the class sizes that's the constraint. So if we increased our student enrollment by 5% and we increased class sizes by 25, our budget wouldn't change. I could make our budget stay absolutely the same. So we've got to really think about that side. And I want to come back to that in a second. So actually, this is a good time. But when I looked at the class sizes, what I noticed is we've got some grades that have got 21. But what we've got in some of the earlier grades is we've got 18, 19, and 20. And it's really, really good if we could go and revisit those to say, can we look at 20 being our maximum number? And I think that goes to one of our strategic priorities that we would like to think about. So we've got some grade, I think it's 5th grade at the moment, it's got 21 right across. It'd be great to go forward and say 20 in the classroom. And that would take a little more pressure off in the classroom, off the teachers. We've got one less, a little more time. So that was the one thing that I saw.
Class size guideline for 5th grade is 19 to 21.
Right, so I was hoping that we might change it to 19 to 20 or 18 to 20. I would love to see that going forward.
The lower grade for there's 2 sets of guidelines.
Right, so there's one for the lower
17 to
grades.
19.
Right, in the lower grades, and I think we exceed that from time to time. So that's why I wanted us to go back to the policy and use years where our budget, when I look at the budget, like I said, 93%, it's contractual, 3.5%. No wonder the budget's going up by 3.9%. I was surprised that your supplies aren't going up a lot more because I'm seeing supplies at 10%, but you're doing a good job. I think some of the bulk purchasing will help, etc. So I'm just looking at it just as an outsider saying, whoa, that's where the increase is coming. But I'm sort of thinking this is a great opportunity for us to invest again in that policy to try and look at it again and take it down maybe a little bit to make our class size a little more manageable. At the same time, I'm going to go to paras now. One thing I noticed is when we look at the statistics on, I think it's on page 12 of the presentation, and the middle section that says instructional support. I see instructional support, general ed, teacher assistants, where it's 15, 14 and a half, all the way. It's my 12, yeah, page 7.
Okay.
Actually, I have the whole data. You don't have all the data. I have 10 years of data here. But we have. Yeah. Yeah, so what I noticed there is I saw that the general ed assistants were about 15, and after COVID is probably the best way to describe it, we've gone to about 9.5. So I was a little surprised that we're moving to books again, and we're not adding to that. So one was going to make a proposal, let's add 2 rather than take 2 away. I know it's difficult to get people, but I think it's important to have them in our budget and go back to that point where the teachers in general education are getting the support. Now, I'm also getting this feeling that we've got the special education that's getting a larger fraction of the budget. Stephen mentioned it and talked about that in the finance. So I didn't see that part, but it was great to hear. I see it in the numbers here. We had, 12, 13, 14 sped teacher assistants, and now we're looking at 22 to 38. So there's some substitution going on here. Some of the substitution seems to be going to special ed, away from general ed. Now, I think COVID helped me understand this better. I think it's impacting the literacy. We're seeing a greater demand on the like we had before, I thought I put it here, like we had before, and get back to our levels where we had, I believe, 2 teaching assistants per grade, if I'm right. Am I correct?
Except in kindergarten.
Except in kindergarten, to get back to some of those levels.
One grade level, correct? So, teacher assistant, correct? Every grade, right? 4.
Now, this is a question, does it make sense to have 1 per grade level where they can then specialize for that grade? And that's the way I see it, where we can have 1 teaching assistant plus 1 grade. They're not shifting grades, they're staying with that group of students, and they're supporting that 1 group of students. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I would.
I think that in the upper grades, historically, that they were used more as clerical assistants, where in the primary grades, they were used as teaching assistants, where they were instructional. So that was why some of the shift was made, I think, Joy, is that the clerical, 5th and 6th shared because they used it as assistant strictly as clerical, rather than a real teaching assistant instructional.
Not with the- with this help, some of the problems with that within the class. Oops. Would this help some of the, lost my train of Vedic. Post-COVID, I would have thought that all grade levels have seen some sort of increase in need. And having a teaching assistant, at least supporting those grade levels, at least for the foreseeable future, would help alleviate some of the stress coming down into special education and the excess demand. It's one of the things I think we've always seen is these letters that parents are sending in increasingly, saying, you know, my child's support isn't being met, etc. This may be one way in which we can alleviate some of that, at least to show that we're going back to teaching assistant rather than clerical. And again, I would move it rather than Amanda decide that. That was going to be my support. To move back to the numbers that we had previous, rather than cut at this stage.
So are you asking, to know?
Yeah, what the static would look like.
In terms of amount of money, 2 additional teaching assistants,
Two additional teaching assistants.
so maybe for the January, Donna could have, a number of, in terms of how much increase monetarily and, what that would do to the overall budget.
Okay, for 2 or each edition? Each
Two.
one.
2 additional
Two
teacher
additional,
assistants
rather than cut.
rather than a cut. Like that.
It makes sense to put one, as Lynn said, into the grades like we had before. And then they could specialize and not be used as clerical rather than, I would rather see them being teaching assistants per se.
So that would be an addition 4, of what we have in this.
Yeah, in the budget. And that would take it back to the trend that we had historically. Or close to that. We wouldn't even get close to it. It would still be away from it.
Well, it wouldn't be an additional.
Well, they cut 2 in the budget.
2.
No,
we want the 3 4.
No, I want to go 2 more.
You want to add 4?
Can I ask a question? What do we have now so that everyone just understands? I know the numbers, but do we have 1 in every kindergarten class? 1 in, like, how are they distributed now? So Lisa's saying we have 1. Okay, Lisa's going to a speaker.
Gonna go get a disc of her own.
So we currently have 1 paraprofessional in every kindergarten classroom, except one of those kindergarten classrooms is a 0.6 paraprofessional. Does that make sense?
Yes, but then what happens to the other TAs?
So then we had 1. Shift things around a little bit, and we have 1 in grade 2, and then we had 1 grade back, but that also changed. But it's an open spot.
Position.
Right. it's an
Okay,
open
so-
position.
So theoretically.
And then we had 1 in library, media, tech, and that is also still open.
So theoretically, we're staffed to have 1 in every kindergarten, 1 in first, second, and third, and 1 in library. That's what we're currently staffed for, and that's what we're currently budgeted for next year.
And great shared with that.
Yes. Grade 3 and mag share.
And that.
But, so then, 5.6 positions are filled at the kindergarten. There are no vacancies. But of the remaining 4, all are vacancies?
1 is a, what is it? One is filled, I'm sorry, 1 is filled and the rest are vacant.
So it's really 6.6 So then, if we're increasing to try to get to 11.6, can we actually find 11.6 people to fill the job?
reason the addition of the building is because we haven't found people or because people have resigned during the year. So that's why we are currently unstaffed, really challenging to find people and to have them stay.
And so, I mean, I'll just ask the question, if we paid more for those, would we be more likely to hold on to them? Or is it just the climate right now, in your opinion, not to be held, accountable for this, would it really even matter? Is it just there aren't enough people, period?
Well, I think it's hard to know the answer to that question because, they have a union that negotiated their contract, which
Is the contract competitive, I think is what Stephen might be asking.
I
Okay.
think when we negotiated, it was a competitive, right? We did the TA contract. we
It's
talked
very
about.
comparable to other districts in our area.
Okay.
We're not the only place that is experiencing this issue. I mean, there are something like 15,000 paraprofessional positions in the state that are not filled. So, it's a really hard to fill position. And we've had some people leave for really great reasons, like taking jobs in the field of education. We hate to see people leave, but, we also are, very careful about, we don't want to just put anyone in front of kids. It needs to be someone who is qualified to do that work and have the right specialties or the right skills in order to do that. So I'd love to fill all of the ones that are open. We are constantly looking, but there's just not a lot.
Is it easier to find the right certified as opposed to paraprofessional? I mean, for Woodbridge, for our,
I think, yes.
so in some respects, Jade, of what, you're sort of suggesting, would it be more conceiving of, is there an additional certified teaching position that we should be thinking about that could in some way be instrumental in supporting the institution more broadly? I don't know what that magical role is, but.
Well, and I think to your point on that, like sometimes more isn't better. So, having more people who aren't qualified in an area to support kids doesn't necessarily make it better. It's more people to manage within a system. And if people aren't in love with what they're doing, then they're more apt to leave. And then you kind of end up with that hole. So in my experience, I'd rather have quality individuals and also really build the independence for kids, because also that's another downfall of using a lot of paraprofessionals is that you're really decreasing that independence that we want to see kids have.
So we'll still, I think we'll still ask you if you could just give us those numbers.
Because I'd
And
like
then-
to see the budget.
The thing, I would, as long as we're gonna send you back to do some work, I would like to see, the additional cost for an additional classroom teacher. Because as I mentioned the last time, I am very concerned about the first grade class size already exceeding our guidelines. And that's with no new enrollment. So, I would like to look at that number separate from the teacher assistant number for
Teacher
the
assistant.
next
Teacher assistants.
cost, right? And I know it's gonna be more money, but,
No, I agree with you.
yeah, right. So that would be something we could take a look at as a board. Including their benefit package in it.
I don't want to get into a policy discussion, we're not there yet, but are we asking us to look at the fifth and sixth grade classroom size? And
No,
that
no,
would be
no,
the budget?
No,
it would want to add a teacher. It's a guide. Yeah, that's a guide.
It does affect the policy, but I think you understand where we're going.
Yeah,
Just
just,
greater
it will
support.
give us some sense of if we have to do that.
Just to clear the line, so.
It's a guide. Right. It's not contractual. Right. Right. Okay, anybody want Donna and Vonda to dig into anything else?
What?
Like, I was like, is there a Board of Ed vacation?
On a couple of things that were asked last week.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
We are looking, probably go to market on our insurance, so we'll know we'll get the best, price that we can. We talked about leasing, and we have a lease purchase agreement right now with Apple, and that was for like a large purchase of like $325,000 of equipment. What we have in the budget for next year requested is, a refresh of one grade of iPad at like $62,000 and 17 smartboards at $35,000. So I don't know that that's enough to really, kind of depends on what the rates are doing to be a lease, but I would say if we want to do something like that, it might be a bigger, instead of refreshing one class, we might do a bigger, but I think we're still getting our arms around our refresh schedule and what we've got before we get the position. But we should be able to get it in the next month. Yeah, so our recommendation would be to include the budget, we would consider a couple of items. Talked about was if we were going to explore a lease, we'd go a little bit bigger. So instead of just replacing a second and fifth grade board, we do all. We would get the bigger phone and then it's still so, yeah.
It just makes the budget a little.
Exactly. It makes it very difficult, however, to up there. Right.
Right.
It makes it from a discretionary to a fixed cost.
And renewable, it becomes a renewable.
Right. Well, thank you for that, information, Donna. Appreciate that.
And the last thing that I always try to sort of stay away from is benchmarking ourselves in the so I know our budget is 3.89%. I think it's very difficult to say, we've come in relative to anyone else. I usually tell people to stop. Our needs are very, very different to every other school district. And we're very, very careful in how we spend it. Donna does an excellent job. You guys do an excellent job in terms of monitoring these expenses. So I don't think we should sort of try to target a number. I think we should target our needs and wants. Right, so like I said to you, for me, 93% is in-house. When you told me it was 3.89, I didn't have to look at anything else. I knew the salary contract, I knew 3.5% inflation. I said that's 93% of the cost. You've only got 150 as discussions. But you've done a great job. Looking at those non-instructionals every year, I think is something I'd really like to encourage you guys to do in October and November on the finance committee. Where every year you sort of look at all those non-instructionals and just come back and say, okay, we think this is the best one at the moment, or we think we can go out and check out what we can do here on this. Like fuel, for example, I noticed you said that we're getting the blended rate now. If I went out to spot, I'm getting a much lower rate. Right, so it's still costing us. We're not really saving. It's because of the weather, which is an anomaly.
Right.
So we're going to stop doing things like that, where we, get the blended rate which is okay, but if I went out to spot it would be much.
So no,
response.
you're saying we shouldn't have blocked them.
Yeah, so I think we talked about this where I said, let's go for 1 year if we could on the open market. And I think we said the town made that decision for us in many ways. Yeah, the town made that decision. And I think this is something we've got to pass on to the town to sort of really be careful with some of this contracting. Yeah, think about optionality on this. Thank you, guys.
All right, so,
One other, I can mention it at the curriculum committee, like to see some ballpark figures for some of the reading curriculum programs we're considering. That would be, or a range or something
I did
of the
get
potential costs. Okay.
I did get them. So check. I turned it down to a low number, so I tried to look at their element population, because this is really predominantly from 1, 2, and 3, third grades, right? So it's not the whole school. So rough about, we'd be looking at a little under 500 students, K 1, 2, 3. The districts that I looked at for their K 1, 2, 3 students, their population was about 100, each of them collectively, about 120, like another institution bigger. Bottom line is, they were looking at about 350,000 for a population that was about 125 children more than ours. So if I did my little math, you know, it's about 300,000, of which we have about 250 grant funds available. So again, that's taking 3 different programs, you know, some are a little bit more, some are a little bit less, but a ballpark figure on average. We're pretty close, so not the staff time. Education. Well, I mean, when we purchase many of these programs, it comes with, you know, days, you know, that can be chunked out. Well, it depends, right? So many of these districts, if you implement in the fall, you'd be looking at 2 or 3 days of PD for one of those days, and then they would, you know, maybe come back in November. It's really hard to actually week to day or some sub costs, but it would be minimal, right? It would be minimal.
I was gonna ask that, but exactly the same question.
Yeah.
We need to add more, we need it in a way to accommodate that.
now that's contractual too.
Yeah, so you'd have to pay, right? And I think, Donna,
That, so we had August, we had November, we had March, right? So we had that just half day in November. And a beginning, and a full day in
So-
November.
Some districts pay in 5 done August. And that's it. And it's, show you what again.
Okay, so, they'll work on getting that information. I'm gonna remind you that if you think of a question, shoot it off to Fonda and Donna so that they can work on that.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna talk a little bit about, right now, these special meetings that we need to have, okay?
sorry, the method that one very quick.
Yeah.
We came up with thousand number. Mike asked a question about the money part, so I'm just gonna quickly follow up. There's an incremental cost of 50,000. Would you implement that over 1 year, or would that be 2 years, or would you phase it?
Again, it depends on the program selection and all of that, and we wouldn't be anything in it. But if we did, I think learning capacity wise, we talked initially about staggering, so that the first year of implementation might be pay in 1 or pay 1, 2, and then it generally depends on our capacity to support our teacher, so that it's effective. So theoretically, that money that we might use, we don't need to put in this bucket, we can put in next year's
But I
budget.
was thinking that we could even break it up into 2 components and ask for a piece of it now and ask for a piece of it.
We could, or we could move forward with the grant fund. There are funds left at the end of the year. We could encumber is our thinking that we would like
That's
to move forward in this.
Okay, so Donna reported, about the building committee progress. On Thursday, December 21st, the Board of Finance is scheduled to meet, and the building project is hopefully going to be on their agenda. Immediately following that Board of Finance meeting, I believe it's Thursday, I think. Immediately following that meeting will be a Board of Selectmen meeting where they will set a date for a special town meeting. There is some rumor. There will be nothing in stone until after that Thursday meeting, that their potential special meetings are probably going to be scheduled for January 3rd and or 4th, which was the original date that we had on our calendar to look at the budget. The town has given us some extra time, with the thought that they're going to have those special meetings, we would all need to be at that to support our building project. We are looking at January 8th and 9th, that's Monday and Tuesday, for special Board of Education meeting. We may only need one, we may only need the 8th, but we are going to ask you to hold both the 8th and the 9th, because we have to be cognizant of it's January and there may be snow. So if there's a snow day on the 8th, our meeting will be on the 9th and we'll need to vote on the budget on the 9th. If we can have the meeting on the 8th and we're happy with what's presented and we make a decision about the budget and vote on it, then we won't need to. But I'm going to ask you at this point, as soon as we hear from the town, we'll let you know about the 3rd and 4th. And I'm asking you to hold those dates until we get back to you after the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen vote, and to also hold the 8th and the 9th for special Board of Education meeting, the topic being the budget. Correct? Yes. Fair. Okay.
Which
so
needs to be completed by the fall.
needs to be, yeah.
That's our deadline.
Okay. So that's for the board to make note of. And perhaps we can send out an email confirming all of that to you after Thursday night when we know a little bit. Okay, and that Board of Finance meeting, if you're interested in it, is posted on the website at the 6 p.m. start. I don't know if it's in person, but I just don't know. Right, so we need to confirm that tomorrow. Okay. Upcoming meeting presentation. The upcoming upcoming meeting for the January meeting presentation, that's such a poor sentence, but we know what I mean. Is special education update. So Carrie is going to be prepared to talk to the board about special education, as she did last year, to give another report this year to the board. So I'm going to ask board members to reach out to Vonda or Carrie if there's anything specific that you want to see or hear about in that presentation. If you could shoot them off an email, pick up the phone and call them and tell them what you'd like to see addressed in that presentation, they'll include that. Okay, moving on, new business. Any new business? I think not. Okay. My monthly community service announcement. Policy committee will meet Thursday, January 4th. Is that right? No, it's not policy. I think it's facility. I think it's facility. I think I cut and pasted incorrectly. I know. happens when it's the holiday season, you know, the eggnog. Yes, yes. The Facilities Committee will meet on Thursday, January 4th at 7:30 a.m. The Finance Committee will meet on Tuesday, January 9th at 4:30 p.m. So hopefully we will not have a board meeting that night, but if we do, we will work it out. And then due to the observance of Martin Luther King Day in January, the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Tuesday, not Monday, Tuesday, January 16th at 7 p.m. because on the school calendar, there is an X for Martin Luther King Day saying the building is closed. Okay, moving on to number 5 is on the agenda is public comment. Is there any public comment? In the participants list, if you have public comment, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we will move on to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Aaron? Do I have a second? Stephen? Motion to adjourn at, oh, hang on. Yeah, wait, Brooke has her hand up. Are you voting to adjourn, Brooke? Okay, I motion to adjourn at 9:47 p.m. I saw Brooke's hand, I see Sarah Beth's hand, all those in favor at the table, unanimous, thank you. I want to wish everyone a very happy holiday season, most especially a very healthy and happy new year. And we'll look forward to seeing you in January. Marcia, I thank you so much for being there for us all the time. And Anthony, thank you for coming in when you're not feeling well, is right. Appreciate that. Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.